For the New York State AFL-CIO, I'm Darcy Wells, and this is Union Strong.
Take a look now at Capitol Hill, where the government has shut down for the first time in nearly 7 years.
The government is shutting down. So now what? And just how bad will it be?
The federal government remains shut down this morning with no clear endgame in sight.
We are now in week 2 of a government shutdown that's been described as calculated, cruel, and chaotic with no end in sight. On this podcast, the president of the New York State AFL-CIO is our guest to talk about what it will mean to working people and the services we all rely on. Joining me on the podcast is the president of the New York State AFL-CIO, Mario Cilento. Mario, thank you for spending some time with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And we want to talk about the current federal shutdown. You were just recently with the governor and several other leaders in New York City talking about this.
And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce the leader of the labor movement here in the state of New York, continuing the legacy started decades and decades ago as the birthplace of the labor movement here in New York, and that is the one and only Mario Cilento. Mario.
Thank you, Governor.
Talk to me a little bit about what your message was that day and what you want working people to know about this shutdown and who's to blame for it.
There are a few facts here. This is black and white, no blurred lines. Republicans in Washington lead or have leadership positions in the House of Representatives, in the United States Senate, and obviously in the Oval Office. So for any Republican in Washington or anywhere else to say that Republicans are not responsible for this shutdown is insulting. I mean, it really is insulting to the intelligence of every single American. Republicans in Washington boast and brag about how they are in charge of all levers of government. Well, you're in charge now. The government is shut down. It's your responsibility to get it up and running again, because the reality is we have potentially hundreds of thousands or millions of people who are going to eventually be out of work as a result. When you cut back on healthcare services, when you cut back on education, when you cut back on funding for construction projects, there is no other way around it. People are going to lose their jobs. And so I would ask all union members across this state to get in touch with your Republican leaders in Washington and say, we need you to reopen the government. We need to make sure that we have jobs and services available to all of the taxpayers of this state and this country. It is their responsibility. They will hear us if we all join together and put forth that message that we need to save our jobs, we need to save our services across the state. And really what we need to do is protect our standard of living and quality of life in this country. That's also what this is about. You can't cut health care and say it's not going to negatively impact society. You can't cut education and say it's not going to negatively impact society, or the Environmental Protection Agency, or the NLRB. You cannot say, if all of these aspects of government are cut down or reduced, that it's not going to negatively impact the standard of living and quality of life of every single American. And this is just part of the playbook. Let's keep in mind that since January 20th, over the last 9 months of this administration and this Congress led by Republicans, we have had Project 2025, taking pages out of that playbook every single day. We've had close to 1 million of our brothers and sisters and family members of federal government unions who have had their collective bargaining agreements ripped up and tossed aside and say, you no longer have any job protections. We don't worry about your wages, benefits, and conditions of employment. Too bad. We can fire you at will. That's happening. We know that, again, fact, black and white. We know that with the big ugly bill that passed in July, right? And as I mentioned, cuts to Medicaid and health care. Let's also keep in mind that there have been cuts to the Inflation Reduction Act. Why is that important? Because the Inflation Reduction Act had tens of millions, if not more, of job hours for construction workers, right, on renewable energy projects. Those projects now don't exist. They're not going to move forward. This administration is not interested in putting forth renewable energy projects and renewable energy in general. So those tens of millions of job hours affect hundreds of thousands, if not millions of workers across this country in the construction industry who thought they would have projects to work on a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. They could count on continuous income. And that's not going to exist going forward. And now you have this government shutdown. It is a pattern. It's again, I try not to be overtly political, Darcy, but when we're talking about who has leadership, who's in leadership, and the decisions that have been made, and what we're living in now, which is basically confusion and chaos, that's what's happening around us. Mm-hmm. We have to stand up as a movement and say, stop. Everybody take a breath. We need to get back to work. We need to restore jobs and the services that our members provide and allow us to have a standard of living and quality of life that we can all be proud of.
When the governor had her event just recently, standing in front of the Statue of Liberty, which was obviously deliberate and sending a message, and she had other leaders there, she obviously wanted you there representing working people. She must recognize that as well. And she had union members there. And it sounds like you really feel like that's who's going to feel this pain, is the everyday worker out there.
Average workers, average, again.
Whether it's the services.
Whether it's, you know, with the Medicaid cuts, you're going to see hospitals closed down. We just are. So the reality is we're going to be competing for healthcare against one another. Who's going to get into the ER? Who's going to have this doctor's appointment, right? Because you're going to have fewer doctors, fewer nurses, fewer services in healthcare. We're going to have to see cuts to education. Well, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean cuts to after-school programs, preschool programs? Does it mean we're not going to have enough money for food in school and all the different services that are provided? In addition to the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, what does that do? The governor understands the role that labor plays in the public discourse. And I think certainly, first, I want to congratulate the governor, and I want to commend her for this. I think the governor has set a standard for every elected official in this country. I think she really has in terms of leadership. We need calm, thoughtful leadership now more than ever before. This is a time of confusion and chaos, and it's coordinated confusion and chaos on behalf of the Republican leadership in Washington. But the governor has set a standard that says we can work with everyone. We can work with labor. We can work with business to, in fact, further the cause of all citizens, not only of New York State, but across this country. I was pleased that the governor had invited me there and to speak, because the governor understands this, that when the labor movement joins together with our friends in elected office, elected officials who share our goals, our dreams, our point of view, then we not only have the ability to protect workers from what's happening in Washington, but we have the real opportunity and we have the power when we stand together and fight together to raise the standard of living and quality of life in this country. And to not only that, but to provide the opportunity for a better and brighter future for our children, grandchildren, and generations to come. And I think that's what the governor was trying to get at, having us there at the Statue of Liberty, having her friends in labor there with her to join her, and said that together we can do anything. Not only play defense, but we can play offense and say, this is how we go about these things. This is how we're successful. Let's talk. Let's sit down and go through all this, not just unilaterally what's been happening in Washington, unilaterally saying, we're going to do this, we're going to cut jobs, we're going to ignore collective bargaining agreements and think that that's somehow going to make this a better country, this Make America Great Again. If anything, we're going backwards. We're not going forwards. And I think the governor realizes that, and I want to thank her for that.
All right. Well, we want to say thank you for taking the time to talk to us today. We appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Joining me on the podcast is Liz O'Neill. Hi, Liz.
Hi, Darcy.
So Mario talked a little bit about how important it is to get our members specifically engaged when we have things like this, of this importance going on. How can they find out how they can help?
Our website is like the best resource to go to for this sort of thing. Whenever there is a big action like this happening, there's a call campaign, a letter campaign, a petition, something like that. This landscape is changing constantly. So we're keeping our website up to date so folks can go there and see what the latest is. Also on social media, it's a great resource. We share updates there. You can go there for information. You can go there to share posts so you can get it out to your network. And also in this case, just call your representatives. They need to hear from us and about how serious this is and how important it is.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Darcy.
This has been a production of the New York State AFL-CIO. Our president is Mario Salento. Our secretary-treasurer is Terry Melvin. We're a federation of 3,000 unions representing 2.5 million union members, retirees, and their families, with one goal: to raise the standard of living and quality of life of all working people. We keep New York State unions strong by fighting for better wages, better benefits, and better working conditions. For more information on the labor movement in New York, visit nysafl-cio.org. Until next time, stay union and stay strong.